Recently, Adobe released a latest update for Lightroom Classic, version 13. There are a couple of new tools and an update to one of my personal favorites, the HSL panel. Hi, I'm Darlene with Digital Photo Mentor, and in this video, I'll show you what's new with Lightroom Classic and some things to watch out for. So if you're ready to dig in, let's get started. Okay, let's take a look at what's new in Lightroom Classic 13. As a matter of fact, we're already on version 13.0.1. They already released an update a few days after the first release. Because there were so many bugs and problems, it came out almost immediately. So check which version you have installed and make sure that you've got the latest one. To do that, just check with your Creative Cloud app, go to Apps on the side panel here, and Updates. You can see that my Lightroom Classic shows that it is current and up to date, and that I need an update for Photoshop Beta. But this is where you can check to see that you have the most current version installed on your system. So let's take a look at what's new. The first new tool you'll see on the list is Lensblur. This one says early access on the tool. We'll take a look at that in a minute, and essentially it's just a beta version. So it's not quite finished is my understanding of it. I'll tell you more about that later as well. The next thing to note is that the HSL panel has now changed into Color Mixer. So if you're looking for HSL on the side panel in the Develop module, it's now called Color Mixer. When you open Color Mixer, you'll see that there's also a new tool called Point Color. I'll show you how to use it in a moment. Along with Point Color, this is the biggest improvement, in my opinion, is this new tool is now available in the masking section. So previously, you could not do HSL on just a localized portion of your image. Now, using Color Point, you can. The next new thing is that you can search your developed presets. If you want to find a certain one and you're not able to, you can now search by name. And finally, there's a new button or tab in the basic panel in the Develop module called HDR. Not to be confused with HDR photography, this is purely about how it displays on your monitor. Let me hop over to Lightroom and I'll show you how all these things work. The first thing you'll see, as I mentioned, is in the basic panel in the Develop module. In this top section here, it previously used to just say color or black and white. Now you see three options: auto, black and white, and HDR. If we click auto, it does as expected. It adjusts the sliders and does auto toning. Previously, that option was down here. To remove it, you need to do an undo. So Command or Control Z. Z if you're American. The next one is black and white. Now remember I said that the HSL panel was changed into Color Mixer? You could find it right below Tone Curve. Watch what happens when I click the black and white button. Just like before, it's now converted your image to black and white, and you'll find the black and white mix sliders where you can adjust the tones of the image based on the original colors. To go back to color, just click black and white again, and it reverts the image back to color. Finally, this new button, HDR. It's not what you might be thinking. It does not make your image into an HDR styled image. This is about monitors and how many colors they can display. So if you have an HDR or a high definition monitor, you can use this button. When we click it, you'll see that the histogram changes. Now it shows SDR, which is standard dynamic range, so a standard monitor, and HDR. Personally, I can't see myself ever using this because I actually avoid high definition monitors. The issue is on a high definition or high resolution screen, it can show you more colors than is actually reproducible on, say, your phone or if you go to print it. So you can actually set yourself up to feel disappointed if you see your image somewhere else other than on that screen. So I use standard definition screens only. But if you have a high definition screen, you can use this option. But I'm not going to cover any more detail on this tool here because I don't have an HDR monitor, so I can't show it to you. And if you don't have one, you can't see it. So check the Adobe documentation on this tool if you want to learn more. I'll provide a link to that for you in the description area below. To turn it off, similarly to the black and white button, just click it again and it will go back to regular viewing. Next, let's take a look at the color mixer. You'll notice when you open it, there are two options at the top now. Mixer, and you'll see the familiar HSL options, which you can do hue, saturation, luminance, or you can adjust them by individual colors. But now you also get the option of point color. So when you click on it, it's sort of grayed out. To activate it, you need to select a color using this eyedropper. So I'm going to click the eyedropper and then click on the green somewhere in here. You'll notice that this tool gets magnified when you hover over your image. So I'm going to select green. You may be thinking, well, couldn't we do that before with the HSL slider and just adjust the greens? Yes, but this gets way more specific. Let me show you. Now I can refine it a bit more. If you don't see this option at the bottom here for range, just click the triangle to open it. Notice down here, there's a button that says Visualize Range. I'm going to check that off. And what you then see on the screen is the colors that are selected are in color and everything else is monochrome. So we can get really specific as to which greens we want to refine. I can adjust by saturation range, range in general, brightness. You see, it's not changing all that much because there's not a lot of green in here, or saturation. So for this case, greens are greens. So I'm going to make the greens a little bit more saturated, darken them a little bit because I want more contrast, and shift them more towards the yellow side of the hue scale. So yes, I could have done that with HSL, but we're not done yet. Click on the eyedropper one more time, and this time I'm going to choose yellow. I want to affect these light yellows, somewhere like that. Let's do visualize range. Notice we're picking up quite a lot of green. So I can fix that. I can say, well, no, I don't want the greens. So let's go a little bit more this way. And I don't want ones that are super dark. I want the light colors. See how it's adjusting? So now I'm not getting the dark colors, less yellow, and let's do the lesser saturated yellows. Now I can brighten them even more, desaturate, or add saturation, and shift the color. Maybe I would like it to look more like fall. So let's go a little bit orange. Once again, we're not done yet. Let's select one more and do some leaves that are actually a little bit on the orange side. If I'm not happy with my selection, you can just right click on any of the swatches and delete it. So let's try the orange again. I want to get something a little deeper. Let's try there. Let's visualize what I've got and refine it a little bit so we have more of the lightest colors and just those leaves that are orange. See the difference as I shift here? How it's changing to just the orange leaves? So I'm going to brighten them, saturate them, and actually make them a little more red. Using the eyeball, you can turn it off and on like all the other tools. And I think I've gone a little too far with this one. With the saturation, let's dial it back a little bit. Can you see how it's adjusting the greens, the yellows, and the oranges very specifically? Let's take a look at another example and how it might apply using a mask. In the original version of this image, I did some color correction and some cloning to remove some things, but there's still a color cast of this bluish tint on her blouse, so I want to try and remove that. Let me zoom in a little bit. For this one, I'm going to use the regular mixer side or the HSL. Let's make sure we're on saturation, click the targeted adjustment tool, and then working over top of the blouse, just bring the saturation down. You can see that it is indeed removing the blue tint. But what if I want to adjust that orange blazer and make it not so vibrant? Let's see what happens. I'm going to go over top of the orange and drag the saturation down. Oops, what happened? It's corrected her face as well, right? That used to be a problem, not anymore. Let me just undo. And instead of applying it in HSL, we just need to mask it in. So I'm going to create a mask using people and just select clothing. Once I've created the mask, when you scroll down in the options for the masking, so keep in mind, this is not the regular tools, right? Point color is now part of the masking options. So now I can just use the color picker, click on the jacket, and adjust. If I want to make it darker or less saturated, or even shift the color. But as you could see, it is not affecting her skin tone. For me, this is a huge improvement. I've wanted to have the HSL tool as part of masking for ages. Now we can use something that's even more specific and get really clear on which part of the image we want to color correct. I love it. The next thing that's new is the ability to search your develop presets. So when you're in the develop module, you'll notice a search bar up here. So I'm just going to search for faded because I know I have some presets that have kind of an antique look, and I think that word is in the title. So you'll notice that by searching for faded, I came up with quite a few options. And now I can just hover over them and see which one I like. If I want to find a different preset, I just need to search for a different term. Let's try night and see if I have any presets that apply to night photos. Again, I have a few options to choose from. So this one is pretty simple and handy if you have a lot of presets in your collection. While we're on this image, it's time to look at the lens blur tool. When you open it, you'll notice that it's grayed out. To start using it, you just need to click apply right here. You'll notice that it analyzes the image and it takes a few seconds to figure out where the depth mapping is. So the way that this tool works is it's trying to figure out which things in your image are closer to the lens and which things are further away. I have to say it does a pretty good job of doing that. Let's see how it works. The first slider is pretty straightforward. It's the blur amount. I'm going to take it all the way to 100 just so that it's easier for you to see. The next option down is the bokeh. What kind of bokeh are we using? And it changes the look a little bit depending on your image. I'll come back to this one in a minute when we have one that has light sources that will become more bokeh. The boost slider, if you hover over it, will tell you that it adjusts the brightness of out of focus light sources. In other words, bokeh. So if you have a light in the background that you want to have more bokeh, increase the boost slider. Now this is where it gets really interesting, this focal range section. It's got this selection and you could see right now that it's towards the right. How it works is things on the left of the scale are closer to the camera and things on the right are further away. So you'll notice that the blur has been applied to the foreground or things closest to the camera. If I slide this to the left, we can do the opposite. Now you can see that things in the foreground are sharp and things in the background are more blurred. Now we can also see how the bokeh works. You'll notice that if I boost it, it does indeed increase the intensity. You can also change the shape of the bokeh. So pick the one that you like. I kind of like the second one. On this focal range slider or section here, you can get really specific in terms of how much of your image you want in focus. It's like having an f1.4 lens in your bag without spending the money. It's really cool, actually, and it works fairly smartly. I'm going to narrow this section here, or the range of the image that's in focus, and as I go from front to back slowly, see how the image focus changes. Right now, it's about here in the middle of this alleyway. As I keep going, you'll see it move further away, until we're at infinity. Now, the very last part of the alley or furthest away bits are sharp, and very little of the foreground is in focus. That's pretty cool, right? While I'm working on this, I want to show you something that you need to be aware of. I'll come back to that in a moment, but I use something called Clean My Mac, and it's currently telling me that my CPU or my computer is 89 degrees Celsius and that it says your max temperature is far above recommended. Act to avoid hardware failure. If I go in and act this tool one more time, let me just make a few more adjustments and then come back to look at my settings again. You can see that Lightroom is taking up a lot of resources and the temperature of my computer is quite high. There we go. See, now Lightroom is using 330% of my usable resources. I've seen it go as high as 1500%. How that's even possible, I don't know. But just be aware of that if you're using this new tool. I find that I have to use the lens blur on one image and then go apply something else or use different tools or a different image so that I can let it sort of chill out. That's what I'm going to do now. So I'm going to let my computer literally cool down and I'll be back. Okay. I literally had to stop recording and save my recording just in case because Lightroom has crashed on me a few times using this tool. Let's continue looking at lens blur. Here's another image that I've applied it on already. You can see it's done a nice job blurring the background and making her stand out. But let's take a closer look. It's not done such a perfect job around her hair. But if I turn it off, notice her shoulder, the front part of her sweater, is even out of focus as well. Her face is nice and sharp, front of her shoulder or foreground, so it's created this look of the really, really shallow depth of field that you get with a prime lens 1.4, 1.8, which is brilliant. But it's not perfect. You'll see there's some artifacts and places around the hair that it's missed. So if you want to try and do some manual adjustment of this tool, down below here, there's focus and blur. So if you click on blur, you can then paint the blur in where you want it. I'm going to use a smaller brush with a large feather or soft edge and about 25% flow or opacity. And then I'm just going to kind of grab the edges or paint in here, maybe even a smaller brush, and just paint in a little bit where I think it could blend a little bit better. See, it's not great and it's not perfect. So it takes a little bit of refining around a subject like this that's quite complex, like hair, but in most subjects that are fairly easily defined, it does a great job. So just watch out for complex masking like hair. Once again, if I drag this little section, you can see that the focus shifts from her to behind her. Now, once again, you might be wondering, well, couldn't we just select the background using a mask and then blur it using the adjustments? Yes and no. Let's take a look at one that I did exactly that on. I applied several masks, as a matter of fact, including, if I turn them all off, let me just remove them all or turn them off. You can see that the original image, the background, is quite busy and distracting. So on the first mask, I selected the background, adjusted the contrast to lower the contrast a little bit, and lowered the texture and the sharpness to -100. But it doesn't go far enough, right? So I duplicated the mask and did the same thing again with just texture and sharpness this time. It went a little bit blurrier, but again, not enough. So I've added it 3 more times. So as you can see, I've got now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 masks on the background, each of which is at -100 texture and -100 sharpness, and that's as blurry as I can get it without using clarity. I find that clarity just makes kind of a blurry, blobby mess. It's not a nice blur. If we look at the before, you can see the background quite sharp and distracting, and after, it has done an okay job, right? But can the Lensblur tool do a better job? Yes. Take a look at the drastic difference. The one on the left is the one that I did with all the masks, and the one on the right is just the Lensblur tool. See how it really picks up those highlights and turns them into bokeh? Another thing I did on this one was a bit of cloning as well. You'll notice when I open the cloning tool, it says, healing edits are applied to the unblurred image. For best results, apply with the Lensblur edits turned off. Okay, we can do that. Simple to just turn the blur amount down to 0. Now you can see where I've done some cloning to get rid of some of these things in the background that I felt were overly distracting. So I cloned out that rope, and then I applied the blur to the image. So let me summarize with a couple of things that you need to watch out for. I already mentioned that the Lensblur, when you first apply it, might go a little bit slowly, so you have to have patience with the initial application. Second of all, Lightroom 13 has crashed my computer more than once. And when I say crashed, I don't mean it crashed. I mean it shut down my computer. It froze my screen. Actually, I can move my mouse around, but anytime I clicked, it did nothing. The keyboard did nothing. I got the Mac rainbow spinny wheel of death. And eventually, my computer just went completely black. And I went, ah! Not knowing what exactly just happened. And that happened to me twice. Another time, I had to hard quit the entire computer by shutting it down with the power button. So, I say all this, including what I mentioned earlier about it using a lot of RAM and resources. Please use the Lensblur tool sparingly and carefully. Close everything else you're working on, close all your other apps, make sure that if it crashes, you don't lose anything. And back up your Lightroom catalog every time you exit, just to be safe. So what do you think? Are you excited about these new tools for Lightroom? What would you rate the color point tool on a scale of 1 to 10? Are you going to use these new tools? Tell me your opinion in the comment area below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you enjoy my teaching style and want to expand your photo editing skills, check out Lightroom, the complete course now. You get my raw files that I demonstrate in the course so that you can follow along with each of the lessons. Please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and keep watching by clicking another video on the screen now. Take care. Until next time, I'll see you soon.